Welcome to the Vitamin Professor podcast, brought to you by VRM Media, publisher of Vitamin Retailer and Nutrition Industry Executive magazines, in partnership with Nutraland USA. I'm your host, Gene Bruno, Professor Emeritus of Nutraceutical Science and Chief Scientific Officer of Nutraland USA. The purpose of this podcast is to help educate the dietary supplement industry about the science of nutraceuticals and other relevant topics. If you like what you hear and see, don't forget to like and subscribe. Let me tell you a little bit about our guest today. Michael Anthonavage is the VP of Innovation at Vitaquest International, a contract manufacturer and development organization dedicated to expanding the supplement market footprint and ensuring customers gain a competitive edge. Michael has expertise in bringing new technologies to the market, promoting innovation and growth for all areas of health and nutrition, as well as many aspects of skin and hair care product development. He's a biologist, research scientist, educator, technical marketing champion, and a member of the Scientific Advisory Board for the New York Society of Cosmetic Chemists. Michael has held positions across several multinational corporations, including roles in R&D, product development, technical marketing, and as a research fellow for technology vendors. He's also worked as VP of Operations and Technologies for Eurofins CRL, designing and executing human clinical studies around personal care products. Michael continues to lecture and present at conferences and has a list of patents and publications. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you, Gene. It's a pleasure to be here.
It's a pleasure to have you. For those of our listeners, in preparation to doing this podcast, Michael and I got on a call and just chatted a little bit, and we actually had so much fun. It was tough to get off the call because we realized that, when you got two guys who've been around the industry for so long, we start talking about stuff, we start getting excited, and finally, when everybody else was looking bored that was on the call, we just said, okay, it's time to move on. But I'm excited about today's podcast because I'm looking forward to the conversation with Michael.
Me too. Can't wait to get started.
So, Mike, I have some questions for you. I want to start, my first one that's near and dear to my heart, has to do with the approach to formulating products. And so I want to ask you, what is Vitaquest and your approach to formulating products for the beauty from within market?
Well, I've been in the beauty arena for most of my career. Matter of fact, 25, 30 years almost. And that was a wonderful introduction, and that it really encompassed all the different point of views I've had in the industry. So how do we do it here at Vitaquest? Well, the first thing we do is we try to meet our customers' expectations. We pick ingredients, formulation, formats that fit their brand. We really try to understand what they're looking for. In actuality, one of my favorite strategies is to actually ask people to explain what their product looks like in finished form, even though we haven't even developed it yet. But give me your fantasy. Give me your ultimate success story, and we work it backwards. All right, and we don't start with price, and we don't start with ingredients. We start with what it looks like. Who's your audience? What do you want to do? And what will it take for your audience to buy it again? And I really think that's a really important aspect to a successful brand, is loyalty.
Absolutely.
We stay in cost structure, obviously, and for beauty from within, the real hook, I think, is a sensory play, because the topical world has been very much associated with touch and tactile, smell and feel. Right. So you don't get that with the supplements. So if we're going to be differentiating and really trying to wow someone, we have to kind of bring all these things in as a package. Consumer perceivable results. That's what we're looking for.
Absolutely. And I was struck when you're explaining this by how similar our approaches are when I formulate. I do a similar thing, looking at the market, looking at the cost, look, who you're selling it to. And, my thing is, what kind of claims do you want to make about the product, which is similar to what you're doing? And it makes so much sense. I'm glad to hear that that's your approach, because it's one that certainly resonates with me. And for those of you who are listening out there, if you don't use an approach similar to this when you're formulating, you might want to rethink it, because that's an excellent approach. In any case, so Mike, how do you and Vitaquest help your customers to differentiate themselves in the beauty from within space? It's got to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of times our customers come in with exactly what they want, right? And those are the easiest projects in the world, because knowing what you want is half of getting what you want in my book. So, but the majority of people come in with the idea in their mind, or maybe some kind of license agreement that they want to leverage, or maybe a patent that they want to leverage, or maybe they like an ingredient or even a benchmark that's in the market that they want to emulate. So finding out where their shtick is, or where they want to put their eggs, is really important. Once we figure that out, consumer habits dictate solutions. So understanding their consumer is really a key to their success. You don't want to, if your brand focuses on a younger demographic, and using ingredients that are tried and true and familiar to an older demographic, it won't make sense. It won't resonate. Matter of fact, they might even think it's kind of old news if they know anything about it at all. You also want to understand, does their consumer base have an established uh, topical program in place already, right? Because 9 times out of 10, probably 99% of the time, you're supplementing a topical routine, right?
Yeah.
We all take our showers in the morning or in the evening. We all have our routines. So how is this going to adjuvant that? How is this going to be additive to that? How is this going to synergize with that? These are avenues that we look at. We certainly want to ID some benchmarks, make sure that we have innovative ingredients, ones that have new clinical data out, that can make new claims, and marry those to the things that their customer base is already using. In the end, we're looking for a multi-generational plan, right? Because you just don't survive on one thing, right? Next year you have to come up with another incremental innovation. The next year
Right.
the next year the same. So if you don't leave room for growth, your brand gets stale.
You know, I certainly agree with everything you just said, and something that you said in the beginning makes me want to go just slightly off onto a tangent for a moment, and that is, one of the things you said is, the easiest one is when your customer comes in and says, "I know what I want. This is what I want." That's great, but I don't know. I'm guessing you've probably had the experience that I've had, which is a customer comes in and says, "This is what I want in the product," and they choose something that isn't really good for what they are trying to achieve. They want a certain thing. Maybe they want the product to improve, to help with dryness or wrinkles or whatever. And what they've chosen is not really effective for that. So I know how I deal with that kind of a situation. It's always a little touchy. How do you, as a formulator, while you're both trying to be supportive of the customer's desires, but also you want the product to work, how do you deal with a situation like that?
Yeah, that's that. I look forward to days like that, actually. And I'll tell you why. Because one of the things that I love to do is I like to teach, right? And as a biologist, as a skin biologist in particularly, um, I'll listen, right? And I'll take it all in. I'll empathize with their position, and then I'll say, consider this. And then I'll talk about the biology of moisturization, to your example. And moisturization's been around a long time. There's a lot of ho hum ideas around retaining moisture, or correcting barrier. But did you ever think about looking at it from this point of view? And then I start to teach about aquaporins, or I'll start teaching about how calcium gradients help differentiate keratinocytes, which then control the barrier in a different way. And these are just, ad lib examples that I'm bringing up, but I get them to think a little bit out of the box, right? Because a lot of these I'm going to call them ho-hum target claims can really be spiced up by just applying some of the latest literature, the latest discoveries, the latest trains of thought around how the biology is being investigated. And I have that perspective because I've seen so many clinical studies done with ingredients that actually focus on some of these biological targets. So I get them to think a little bit. The best response I get from them is that momentary pause of and if I get that, I know I struck a note, right? And then I can take them. I can take them as far as they want to go. I have to be careful a lot of times because depending on if I'm talking to a marketeer or a product development person, I have to adjust my approach, right? I can talk very technical to a product development person, but I have to talk about more of the why and the how all this biology makes sense to a marketeer. So it's one of these things that I just actually live for.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you look forward to that, and I love that you take it as a teaching opportunity. I think that is awesome. That's kind of like a win-win response to a situation that could be awkward, and instead becomes something where you're legitimately helping them. And something else you just said about helping to think in another way about something makes me think about the next question I want to ask, which is, so are there, in this business, there's a lot of, let's call them tried and true ingredients that we know is very specific for, a certain purpose intended. And here you are trying to see, well, what can we do to innovate or differentiate and those kind of things? So my question is, are there any other areas or ingredients or concepts that could come into play that haven't historically been used in the beauty space? And if so, what does that look like? We talked about this a little bit the other day.
Yeah, so you're actually going to give me a chance to exemplify what I just talked about, right?
Yeah.
So traditional ingredients, okay, they're out there. Everybody's got them, right? So let's talk about how to be different. So we'll just use skincare products for this example, but we could apply this to hair or nails or any other area of beauty that you want to talk about. But skin's fun. I know skin really well. Skin is the largest organ in your body. Everybody goes, yeah, we already know that. Well, what's so special about being the largest? Well, from a supplement perspective or a nutraceutical perspective, it's got a lot of blood. It's got a lot of immune cells. It's actually a detoxification organ. It has enormous amounts of protein in its matrix. It's involved in an environmental interface with the whole world that you live in. So there is so many opportunities to position products and ingredients to effectively encompass hundreds, if not thousands, of mechanisms, right? So yes, protein, biotin, omega-3s, anti-inflammatories, your classics, your vitamin C's, all very important, all been proven to be very effective. And frankly, you need some of those ingredients at least one time a day to help your skin do what it does. However, if you're going to talk about repair, or if you're going to talk about retention of molecules or water or barrier or any of the things that are involved in maintaining healthy skin on a regular basis, you can really go at it through these other mechanisms. I literally made a career in product development from the topical side doing that. And one of the things that actually brought me to Vitaquest was the fact that I could now play from the inside out. And that gave me such a palette of colors to play with in the beauty from within space. So from my point of view, it's limitless. It's limitless.
I'll tell you something that just impressed the heck out of me the other day when we were talking. Now, some years back, I wrote a book on alternative treatments for diabetes, having had that in my family. And one of the things I talked about in that book was AGEs, or advanced glycosylated end products. And I at one point in time, because I never heard anybody else talk about it, I thought, am I the only one that knows that these things are involved, and cross-linking of collagen, and they can impact skin and all that? And you said it, and I went, Mike, he's a really smart guy. And I thought, wow, this is a guy that is thinking outside the box. He's thinking about, what other things can be done. So I just wanted to let you know, I was really impressed by that you were thinking about it in that way. And it encourages me that there's someone out there that is thinking about these alternative concepts, and also makes me feel happy for customers that you might deal with, that they're going to get somebody to work with them that is thinking outside the box, and that is innovative, and actually has an honest to God way to differentiate a product above and beyond, maybe what they would normally get. So kudos to you for that mindset. Well, I mean, you're just a smart guy, so you know about a lot of this stuff, and other people don't always know about it, but still, kudos to you for that. So great answer, and thank you for that.
If I could add to that a little bit,
because please, yeah.
I think there's so when we talk about beauty from within, you can't be boxed into just skin, hair, and nails, right? Beauty is a completely new chapter to write, right? And I think every 10, 15, 20 years, the definition of beauty changes. So my current view of beauty right now is the incorporation of good mental health, good sleep, good gut-brain axis, gut-brain axis, motherhood, menopause, age-specific targets, and the one that I've been touting my whole skin biology career. Let me give you a little Jeopardy fact. So when your skin is developing as an embryo, you have these layers of cells that start to form, and one of them is called ectoderm. Ectoderm gives rise to your spinal cord, your nervous system, and your brain, your central nervous system. It also gives rise to your epidermis. So it's no coincidence that there are all the receptors in your skin that can listen the same way your brain listens to these neuropeptides and these neuroendocrine hormones. Nobody is tapping that. However, everyone agrees that your cognitive health and your sleep health have a huge impact on your overall beauty. So if you sleep good, you're less stressed, you perform your daily routines more routinely and regularly, which is your beauty routine in this case, you look better, people tell you look better, that feeds back on your positive outlook, and the cycle just gets better, bigger, better, bigger all the time.
And you mentioned, microbiome and the role that plays, and of course we know, psychobiotics, we know about probiotics and the effects that have in producing neurotransmitters, and the effects that have, and that relates to sleep, and so forth and so on. So there's this whole interconnection. We have a tendency in this industry to want to categorize things and say, this is all cardiovascular, this is all cardiometabolic, this is all this. But the fact is, there's an interconnectedness to them. And so the fact that you're looking at that and saying, what are those connections and how can they be brought into it? Even just something as simple as sleep that you mentioned, talking about.
We learn these things in a reductionist kind of way, right? The little,
we do. It's very reductionist way.
The bigger to the bigger. But the reality is things function systematically. There's systems integration. And when you look at herbalism or naturopathic medicine, that's really the culmination of the next generation mindset for health, right? Pharmaceutical is very linear, targeted, right? Specific receptors, specific antagonists, specific this, where holistic medicine and naturopathic medicine really takes into account systems biology. And that's where the real results come from.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes me think of, it's not directly related, but it makes me think of the whole endocannabinoid system and how like only 13 medical schools in the US even taught it. And it's a whole system in the body and its interconnectedness with all the other systems. And it's something that leave it to our industry to actually, start to address that in a more meaningful way. So yeah, I love that, the interconnectedness, the understanding of that. Again, I think that bodes well for any potential customers that you're working with. So again, good for you on that. Now,
Thank
so we kind of touched on this early, but I want to sort of bring it up again and expand on it a little bit. Consumers looking to improve how they look may start taking a beauty from within product, a supplement, and they might expect immediate results. And so one thing I'd like you to do is address the reality of what is a timeline on that? I mean, and what do you and approaching this whole issue, not just from beauty from within, but beauty from without as well. How can they work in a complementary way? And what's kind of realistic with regard to expecting results? Because it just doesn't happen immediately from beauty from within.
I love that question. I really do. And I'll tell you why, because being on the topical side of most of my career, it's now my mission to bring the topical world close enough to the supplement world to where they get into their own gravitational pulls and they start to orbit each other. I don't think the industries are there yet. Matter of fact,
No,
on
they're
the
not.
topical side, they're running out of ideas for innovation, frankly. Right? There's only so many things you can get into the skin, only so deep not to become a drug, that you can actually play in terms of biological targets or efficacy. That's where the topical side really wins, because the consumer actually experiences the topical immediately.
Right.
And immediate benefits are what keeps the topical people lathering the stuff on day after day after day, so the biology can actually take root and actually make an effect or demonstrate an effect, which will then say, hey, I'm going to buy that again because look at me now, right? Or my friends are telling me, hey, man, your skin is fantastic, or your hair is fantastic, or what are you doing? And you can say, this stuff, it smells great, it feels great, it goes on good. You talk about playtime and tack and stickiness or greasiness or lack of. So the topical side has that whole sensory. It's actually a whole division of the topical formulation science, right? Is sensory, psychosensory, tactile sensory, all of it. The supplement side, however, it's challenging, right? And if you think about traditional product forms like capsules and tablets, there's really not much sensory there, right? But new topical formats, or I'm sorry, new supplement formats are starting to make things a little more interesting, right? So we have direct to mouth, or we can introduce maybe some effervescent technology, right?
Sure.
For
Well,
those in our audience that remember Pop Rocks, right?
I
You might be
remember that,
dating
and
yourself.
and don't get too far down that path, because that's going to be my next question. I don't want to steal
Okay,
your thunder on that,
okay.
but yes, but yes. So just back for a moment to the whole thing about the complementary effect of those two. I've always thought that there's such a huge opportunity here for companies, and I just don't think that they're doing it well enough out there. I think there's topical companies who, if they could get into the ingestible space and start marrying these two together, start selling kits, start selling combinations, you're using this to help get rid of some dark spots. This thing, okay, here's a supplement formula that can marry together with that and work from the inside while the other's working from the outside. And is it for acne? Is it for this? Is it for whatever it's for? You have that dual approach. That just makes so much sense to me. And I've seen it in a very minor way, but I haven't seen it in a major way. And I think that the company that starts introducing that combination of, we've got the matching, we got the one from column A, one from column B, they match together, use that for this purpose. I think they're going to go somewhere bigger in this whole beauty category when they're able to address the beauty from within and the beauty from without. And somebody like you who's worked both sides of that aisle, obviously I think could be a big help to them in making that happen. Another thing is, that people don't understand. That's why, as a biologist, let me ask you this. Skin cells, to make a new skin cell, like, how long does that take? What would you say? I mean, I've heard different things. I've heard 6 weeks. I've heard, whatever, 8 weeks. I've heard, to make new skin cells. Do you know what the time frame is on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? And this will be more boilerplate than exact, but
Yeah.
the depends means where on the body you're talking about. If we're talking about face or from the chest up, it usually takes 4 or 5 weeks.
Yeah.
If you're peripheral in the body, it takes a little bit longer. This is also age dependent, diet dependent, health dependent, sex dependent. All these types of things come into play. So you need that sensory piece. The topical side gives you the sensory piece, and also the topical side is more, in a consumer's mind, is more of an application for correction. So they expect the change to happen when I apply. The nice thing, or the hard thing about the topical industry to sell prevention, is that no one sees prevention. This is a difficult concept, but everybody knows that prevention is worth its weight in gold, right? The sooner you start, and now we're seeing teenagers taking supplements for preventative measures because they look at their parents or they
I
look
know. Isn't that crazy?
and they go, I don't want to look like that.
Yeah. When I was a teenager, I don't think any of us thought about that.
No.
And now they are. But that's so my point, not to belabor the point, but my point in bringing up how long does it take a new skin cell to form is, if you're taking a supplement and you expect to see results that quickly, you got to at least allow a skin cycle to be completed, a new cell cycle to start seeing something. And again, that makes just to your point, makes a great reason to use both topical and ingestible at the same time. But that ingestible, I mean, from a long-term standpoint, I think is going to have a long-term benefit that you're not going to get any other way. But using them both together, I think, is a great thing. And also, people need to understand, and I think brand owners need to make sure to give realistic expectations to their customers. Brand owners need to say, maybe even on the product, like if you're using a nutraceutical, and in the study they found, let's say a reduction in fine lines and wrinkles in 8 weeks, let's just say, then you know what? Maybe it makes sense to even say, in research, X ingredient was found to reduce fine lines and wrinkles in 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. So that a person uses it and says, oh, after a week, it doesn't look better. Oh, no, I just read it's supposed to be 8 weeks. So they know. Just an idea I'm throwing out, wondering your thoughts on that.
Absolutely. And I'll go to hair for an explanation on this.
Yeah.
Human hair studies are extremely difficult to demonstrate new hair growth. Why? Because you have about 100,000 hairs on your head. They're all cycling asynchronously. So every hair on your head has its own mindset in a way. So in order for you to actually measure whether or not a hair supplement or even a scalp treatment or anything has a truly a consumer perceivable benefit on someone's hair, you have to do a study for like minimum 6 months. And that means don't cut your hair, don't style your hair, don't dye your hair. And that means that you're really studying that in men. Because most women won't sign up for a study like that. And that's my experience from the clinical side. No matter how much you pay, right? Or no matter what.
Right.
So my hats are off to a lot of these hair brands that have made these strides, because that's a tall order, right? So you see these brands that are on television now claiming, that you have thicker, fuller hair, or your scalp is healthier, therefore my hair grows better. I mean, these types of things are really important to set the expectation for the customer and the consumer in general. Because if you can say you got rid of wrinkles in 8 weeks, your competitor is going to try and do it in 7 or in 6 or in 5.
Correct.
I was in the acne field for so long, and it went from an 8-week clinical to a 4-week clinical to a 2-week clinical. Can I get rid of it in 2 days? Right?
Yeah.
People will live with the pimples or the non-clear skin as long as it's not red and it's not drawing your eye. So when you start thinking about the problem in that perspective, it's more of a color contrast, and cosmetics are the solution, right? Or an anti-inflammatory is a solution, not something that's going to increase blood flow and make you redder, but in the end, probably make you clear your skin better. Nobody wants to wait that long.
Absolutely. Good points. Good part to that discussion. Okay, so let me ask you a new question. I've been asked this question a lot. Sometimes I find it to be a difficult question to answer, and sometimes I find it to be a very fun question to address. Let's see how you feel about it. If you take out your crystal ball and you look in it and try to predict sort of the future, what trends do you foresee in the beauty from within supplement market? And particularly regarding delivery systems, chewable tablets, gummies, that kind of thing. What are your thoughts on that, on trends and delivery systems?
So I'll start with trends first, independent of delivery systems,
Yeah.
which will then we'll kind of dovetail together. So beauty from within is really in today's world, today's market. If you really take a cross section of where marketeers are trying to increase clicks, right?
Yeah.
I mean, social media it has changed the landscape of how you market, right? So
That is
the
true.
entire world is at your feet now when as a social marketeer, right? I'm sure there's a name for that, but I'm just too old to know it. Age, gender, lifestyle, the environment that you live and work in, the external factors that are involved in the places where you live and work. I mean, folks that live in the city have a completely different lifestyle than people who live out in the suburbs, in the woods, or in the middle America versus the coastal regions, different countries, different equatorial latitudes, all these things, sun exposure. So you get people wanting things that are personalized to them, right? I just don't want an
Sure.
generic vitamin C product anymore. I want a vitamin C product that's specific for my needs, right? What I need to have, like my age, my situation. So I think that's part number one, right? So this personalization.
Personalized. Yeah, that's a big trend in the industry in general.
Right. But as a contract manufacturer, how do I make million units of personalized ingredients, right? Because everyone's a one, right? And when I teach, like, herbal studies and I teach the way these clinical studies are run, everything is around statistical significance, right? The summary of the population is indicative of the performance for the one. But you can't play that equation backwards. You can't say the one is predictable of the population.
Correct.
And this is the mindset that's screwing up the marketers these days, because you usually take the agglomerated unit, or the population, and apply it to a consumer. You can't take a consumer and apply it to the population, because
tell that to the influencers, the social media influencers.
Well,
look, I use this. Look how fantastic I am.
Millions.
You should use it too, because it works exactly the same for you as it does for me.
And this is the trend. This is a trend, right? And again, probably beyond my generation at this point, but it's obviously working, right?
It does.
How many
It
millions
is an effective marketing strategy.
Yeah. So to then dovetail that into format and delivery, right? So I look at it from two tiers. I could start from the ingredient side and say, hey, listen, we all know that vitamin C and proteins and biotin are really important molecules and workhorses for 20, 30, 40 years in the industry around skin and beauty in general. But making new combinations of vitamin C with maybe a tocopherol or somehow covalently binding it to a biotin molecule, right? So you're looking at new product formats in addition to putting them into delivery systems that increase bioavailability,
Sure.
increase stability, overcome shelf life instability, right? Because that's another thing, things that aren't subject to water activity that might be, that are not hydroscopic, and it lives next to an ingredient that is hydroscopic, right? So there's this
Are
challenge.
you thinking like microencapsulation or something of that nature?
Yeah, or specialized coatings.
Oh, I was at your facility. I took a tour there a few months ago, and you got a
Yeah,
whole new facility that does the deagglomeration, the microencapsulation, the granulation. I was like amazed. A lot of times you try to buy your raw materials from raw material suppliers that have it that way already. But what if you want something to be microencapsulated that doesn't even exist? You guys can actually make that. You can actually do that. Yeah, that's pretty cool, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. We're really excited about that, and we're just getting started. So yeah, so then you take it up one other level, right? And now it's delivery formats, right? The traditional capsule and tablet seems ho hum, but there are people out there in that space that are innovating capsules, right? We're getting dual capsules. We're being
Sure.
able to put things that are incompatible in traditional capsules now in separate compartments within a capsule. We're
Sure.
looking at tablets, and we at Vitaquest have, through this facility that you just talked about, we're playing around with chewables, right? Because we're predominantly a powder organization here at Vitaquest, we don't do drinks and we don't do gummies, right? So in order for us to hold our footprint and keep our market share in the midst of these other product formats, we have to innovate ourselves and make them, turn something old into something new again. So new chewable technology, how slow melts, fast melts, things that
Yeah.
go into blender bottles without having to shake them like a workout, right? Just a
I think the melts are actually pretty cool as a technology. There's a lot to be said about it from that standpoint. I think it's a nice sensory experience, or it can be a nice sensory experience, but it's a really nice way to do it. There's a lot of people who have trouble, swallowing tablets or capsules, and so they think of, oh, I can do a gummy or I can do this. But a melt is great because you can take that, it'll dissolve. I think it allows a certain payload of nutraceuticals in there. I think that's a particularly promising category. Just
I think
my own
so.
opinion on that.
In the consumer habits, or you have to have an ear on the track all the time, right? So you have these blender bottle craze right now. I mean, hopefully it sticks around as long as possible, because now you have your people are walking around with 32 ounces of fluid all day,
I
right?
know.
And it's not just water, and it's not some crappy soda. It's a supplemental drink, right?
Yeah.
So now you can take your reds or your greens or a combination thereof with a probiotic. The sky's the limit here.
Sure, sure,
But
sure.
you take it from meeting to meeting, from the gym back home to the babysitter, wherever you're going, and you're constantly supplementing now, right? And this changes the biodelivery options that you have. People aren't really talking about that yet, because I think that's a little farther downstream in terms of an advantage to these types of things. And also, I can get mega grams of this stuff in your body versus what I'm limited to a capsule or a gummy or a tablet, right? There's only so much space in something like that. So
You're right.
now, direct to mouth, again, I always think about the that cinnamon challenge, where can you put a tablespoon of cinnamon in your mouth and get it down? Nobody can, right? So there's obviously a disadvantage to you have to know what you're doing for a direct to mouth type of thing, right? So that's a whole consumer experience to have that melt in your mouth without without having you cough it out all over the table.
Precisely. Precisely. I remember, I was with a company that created a collagen product that was like a like a candy in a straw where you do the powder like this.
Oh,
And
what did they call those? Pixie sticks.
pixie sticks, that's right. So it was like a collagen pixie stick, and you put it in, and it actually tasted quite nice. It was actually quite pleasant. But you can't put the whole thing in at once, because if you do, it's like everything's dry. They go, well, yeah, you cough. You do a little bit at a time, but but that's quite nice. But I love the idea, like you said, everybody's doing these drinks, and if you can do a nice material that they can mix in, that's something that people can be sipping throughout the day. They need their fluids anyway. What a great way to get it down, especially if you could manage to get the flavor profile what it needs to be, and a good mouthfeel. Man, you're cooking with gas now. Now you've got something happening that I think a lot of people are going to appreciate, and a lot of age groups too, a lot of generations. I think can appreciate that.
And the magic to that is, you could be working with a difficult ingredient, one that is hydrophobic, for instance. So how do you
Yeah.
get that into water, right? So then there comes the technology piece, right? How do I process this hydrophobic ingredient to go into solution without needing a blender?
Well,
right?
I know a facility that does microencapsulation, Michael. I'll introduce you.
Yeah. Send me that information when you get it.
Yeah. It's close to you, as a matter of fact.
So, okay.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's awesome. And that point, I think, about having a hydrophobic ingredient is very meaningful, because there's times I know that when I formulated products, especially if it was going to be a powder product, I'd be, oh, I can't put this in it. This isn't going to work there. I can't put this. I can't. To be able to now say, I've removed those barriers. Now I can put stuff in there that I would normally never put in there, but I can put it in there now because I can do microencapsulation, because I can do these things. That's pretty darn cool.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I mean, especially when you're getting into like some higher level biotics now, right? So probiotics, symbiotics, postbiotics, right? These are now getting to be complicated ingredients, quote unquote. So there's gonna have to be some co-evolution of innovation along the delivery side of that industry for it to really start to matter. Because one of the things I learned about, the skin microbiome, although it's so exciting from a scientific and biology perspective.
Yeah.
The real consumer benefit to skin microbiome changes are only when there's dysfunction, right? Or in pathology.
Correct.
Right. So it's very limited. But when you start talking about the gut and letting the gut kind of balance your skin through its microbiome or through short chain fatty acids that are produced in the gut, right? It all matters now, right? You almost let your body correct itself.
That's right.
How does the consumer know it doesn't have enough diversity of bacteria on his or her skin, or on his or her scalp, or in his or her pores, right? They don't. They only know it by the fact that their skin or hair isn't behaving nicely, or isn't cooperating with them, or I get a breakout right before my first date, or my prom, or my wedding, or whenever I don't need a pimple, right? So these are the things that people look for, which then gets out of it kind of, it ventures into dangerous claim category too. So all this needs to be tempered with using the right language to communicate with the consumer, which I can't stress enough. It's really important.
Now that is some excellent points. Well, I want to make a point, and then I want to invite you to make a point. So this being my 45th year in the industry, I have worked with a lot of contract manufacturers and contract manufacturing and development companies. And I can tell you something you already know, which is they are not created equal. They are not all the same. And, to use the standard grading system, some are C's, some are B's, some are A's, and some are A pluses. and God forbid, some are D's and even F's. And my personal experience and I used to run, used to be VP of Technical Services for a contract manufacturer, and I've seen so many, so I have insider's view, know what to look for. And I've been pretty impressed with when I saw when I took the tour and got to see the facilities at Vitaquest. And I've happened to have had the opportunity when I was with a finished good companies to even work with Vitaquest and see, the kind of products they made. And I've always been impressed with them. I think they do an exceptional job. They're really in the top echelon, in my opinion. But I'd like to give you an opportunity as an insider there, just to give our listeners an overview of Vitaquest and the kind of contract manufacturing services offered, because I think it's important for our industry to understand what makes a good contract manufacturer and use that as a standard for the kind of thing to look for in the market. So if you would be so kind as to share your insights on what makes, the services offered by Vitaquest particularly desirable.
Thank you, Eugene. That's I got to tell you, first of all, I'm privileged to be working for such a great company. Vitaquest has been around since 1977, I believe. So that makes us about
Two years before I started in the business.
47 years, right? So staying power says a lot, I think. I have not been with Vitaquest all those years, but it has evolved. It has grown. We have 4 facilities actually now in total on 3 sites. We have a lot of our sites have been completely overhauled and brand new equipment and high ceilings and the greatest environmental programs, to control manufacturing. It's just wonderful. One of the things that really sets us apart from others, I think, is we have a fantastic global supply chain network. I mean, our toolbox to formulate is I haven't seen one better, frankly. And if you're a mechanic and you see a toolbox that's 8 stories high, boy, you're in heaven, right? So having all those choices and opportunity and options and to be able to work with our vendors and their R&D that they bring to us exclusively. Sometimes we get first look at a lot of technology that comes down the pike. So our customers that walk in the door benefit from that, because when they ask us to differentiate, they could truly be the first ones out the door with specific technology. We're fully integrated in GMP manufacturing. We have our own laboratories on site, fully functional laboratory. I mean, it's really impressive. We deliver unique, effective, science-based solutions to our customers, customized solutions. We're not a knockoff facility. We pride ourselves on new business. A large percentage of our products that we produce are first-time customers. We do full spectrum support from concept to delivery. We have our own 3PL service if you really want us to transport it right to your final destination. We have something called Total Q standards, which integrate product design, internal QC systems, ingredient integrity, sourcing, right? So we place a lot of effort on quality. And that's what attracted me to Vitaquest initially when I came. They're very proud of the product that they put together. As I mentioned earlier, we stick with anhydrous product forms. So we're powders, tablets, capsules, jars, bags, sachets, stick packs, that type of thing. We have our own packaging facility. And we spend a lot of time, effort, and capital on social responsibility. We take care of our customers. We take care of our employees. We take care of the environments where our facilities are.
So important
in those communities. I mean, it's really important to keep your house clean and your yard clean if you want people to show up. We're also very philanthropic. We work with Vitamin Angels. We're involved in
That's a great organization.
CRN. We're also involved in the International Probiotics Association. We have our salespeople, our PD people, our regulatory people, our legal people. They're constantly traveling the universe, learning what's hot, what's not, what to stay away from. I would say on a conservative scale, we're conservative. We don't take a lot of risk because we don't want our customers to have a lot of risk. And yeah, I think that kind of sums it up in a nutshell. It's really a fantastic place to check out. And if you're out there wondering what you need in a contract manufacturer, I'd say Vitaquest is a good place to start.
And you know what? I would agree with you, Mike. So listen, I just want to thank you for being my guest. It was very enjoyable. Not for a number of reasons, not the least of which it's nice to have somebody to interview that has been around for a long time, such as myself. And it's that always feels good, and it's a nice to interview smart people. So thank you for that. So guys, those of you who have been listening to this, again, I just want to reiterate, if you like what you heard and saw, please like and subscribe, and don't hesitate to contact Mike over there at Vitaquest if you have questions. And I'll see you on the next episode, and hopefully I'll see you at one of the trade shows. So thanks again.